Hey guys, this is Kenny Dubman, and you've been listening to Rock at Night.
Are you ready? Hey, tonight I'm gonna take you on a little trip. We're going down south by the mighty Mississippi. I'm gonna take you to a place where lights live again. Bring your mother, your brother, and your best friend. I'm gonna show you where they dance out in the street. They'll tell you all about your body heat. Not gonna talk about it, just gonna do it. Get on down if you feel up good. Get on down.
So you have a show tomorrow night, huh?
Yeah, it's just like a little acoustic solo, classic rock cover thing, just like a local bar restaurant. I do a lot of that.
Hey, man, I mean, whatever you can do to get in contact with your fans, right? I mean,
Yeah,
to spread
or,
your
or
music
just get
and
out of the house.
yeah, that too. I definitely feel that. I think a lot of musicians feel that, especially after, the whole COVID thing and where everyone was locked down, music really took a hit.
Yeah, it really did. I stayed busy doing just what I mentioned before, doing that, doing acoustic duos and solos, because there was like a lot of bars and restaurants around here that just, that kept going. So we just kept playing.
Oh yeah, I can I can definitely attest to that. So, I saw that you enjoy fishing. You're a
I do.
fisherman.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm rather nutty about it. I've been fishing my whole life, and I actually spent like 11 years as a full-time charter fishing guide in New
Wow.
Jersey. Yeah. Matter of
All
fact, that was
right.
one of the things, like when I was getting really heavily into that, is what, kind of led me to put writing and recording original music to the side in the early 90s. And it's, I just became really passionate about being on the water, and I turned it into like a whole new career. And it was awesome. It really was.
Oh yeah, man. I'm a huge fisherman myself. I live about a mile away from Lake Michigan, so I'm almost always on the water.
Oh,
Something
that's great.
something that I love doing. I've never done a charter yet though. I've been thinking about it, but I think I kind of want to save that for the ocean just to kind of just to do that just because I want to get, like a giant grouper or something rather than just like lake sturgeon that we have around here.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Grouper bottom fishing, like in the Florida Keys, is my favorite, and I don't get to do it anywhere near enough. I haven't been down there in probably 10 years, but yeah, I mean, nothing like a big grouper, man.
Oh yeah, that's definitely on the bucket list. Um, so you just recently put out the video "Old Dog" in the last few weeks. What went through your mind when you were recording that track and making that video?
Well, it was more like, the thoughts were really more when I was writing it than when I was recording it. But because it's by the time I go to record it, I mean, it's already been worked out, rehearsed, the whole bit. It's just a song about, if you the message is if you beat somebody, no matter how meek they are, and that can be either verbally or physical or whatever, sooner or later they're gonna give it back to you. So I use the metaphor as, old dog learns a new trick, and the new trick is to turn around and whip your ass when he's had enough of your
That
shit.
that definitely makes sense. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen a lot of people get bullied, over the years, and it's not a nice thing to witness, and nobody should really do that to anybody, but sooner or later, when someone's had enough, they're gonna snap, and that's what that song's about.
I like the message behind that, the stance for anti-bullying, because that's very prevalent nowadays, both, online and physically, bullying. And I think that's always been kind of a big thing. And it's disheartening because it before the days of the internet, it was more like the physical bullying. And now you have the internet, so people can attack you from all angles all the time.
Yeah,
And
and serve it up in much larger doses, and do it without, um any fear of face-to-face repercussion. I mean, it's a lot more cowardly to do it, via text or social media. It's all just terrible. It's not good.
No, no, it's definitely not. So some of your influences are like Santana and Pink Floyd and things like that. If you could play with one of your idols, one of the people that you grew up listening to, who would it be?
Wow. Um, there's a couple. David Gilmour would be one. Neil Schon from Journey, who's probably my biggest influence, would be another. I don't know if you know who Frank Marino is. Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush. They were, he's been around for quite some time, and he was a huge influence on me. Um, also one of Zach Wild's favorite guitar players, Father Frank, as he refers to him as. But yeah, Frank Marino. If you've never heard of him, or anybody that's watches this podcast, same thing. Look him up. This guy is just one of the most savage bluesy rock guitar players you've ever heard. So probably those three cats are the first to come to mind.
Okay. I'll definitely have to check them out because you're right. I have not heard of them. I know of Zach Wild and I know of Journey and all that. I know who they are. Man, I guess there's still a lot I need to learn about musicians.
Well, Frank Marino's really his heyday was like the late 70s. He'd be, he'd play like small theaters and stuff, but it just, as time went on, he didn't seem to really stick in the mainstream. You know what I mean? Like most guitar players, at least of my era, to give my age away or anything, but we'll know if Frank Marino. I know Frank Hannon from Tesla is also a huge Frank Marino fan. I've read some of his stuff talking about Frank Marino. Yeah, guy's absolutely amazing.
Okay, well, that's something that I didn't know. I look at your album cover for Conflicted. What was the influence behind that? Because you have the bullets and then you have the $100 bills, and the arms are crossed. What?
Yeah, don't forget the messages.
Yes, the messages,
You
we the
see that.
people, and I'm sorry, my eyesight is absolute crap.
Yeah, the other one says live free or die. This country's been, I don't want to go down like like a political rabbit hole or anything like that, but I'm a big believer in our rights as guaranteed by the Constitution. And there's been a lot over the past few years that have challenged that quite a bit. So that cover is just me making a statement about who I am and what I believe in. The one hand holding the syringe and the $100 bills, that was kind of a nod to everything that went on with COVID and the big pharma's pushing of the vaccine like mad, like it was a religious thing. And the other hand holding the bullets is kind of just like a Second Amendment statement, like our Second Amendment rights are the thin line that stands between us and a tyrannical government. It's like our line of defense. You see what happens in a lot of other countries where the citizens are unarmed. They can just be completely rolled over by the government. And I think the government in this country is well aware of the armed militia that the citizenry is. So that's a big part of our freedom in this country is our Second Amendment. So I'm a big believer. And that's what the bullet hand represents.
Okay, that makes sense.
In one hand, you have like corruption and medical tyranny, and the other you have like the citizens' freedom.
I like that, and what's cool about it is it's kind of subtle. The album cover is subtle in that way because I don't think everyone would have really guessed that that's what it was about. So that's why I decided to ask you about it.
You have to. It's something you have to look at it and think about it in a minute. But the tattoos on the arms are kind of a giveaway. You know what I mean? Because anytime you see "We the People," I mean, there's no doubt as to where that statement is headed.
Okay. This is kind of something I like to ask people when they're on tour. What is one place or one thing that you have to have with you, or one place you have to stop?
Well, I haven't toured in a long time, more than you could possibly realize, because this whole resurgence of me writing and recording only started in 2016 with the release of Reckless Abandon, my first solo album. So I'm here working a day gig, raising a 15-year-old. She's daughter's 15 now. So touring hasn't really been on the table, but now it's definitely going to be. I mean, she's a little bit older now. She can subsist, for, several days on her own if I need to go off and play somewhere. And yeah, I'm talking to a new management agency about this whole thing, about getting on the road, because I need to get outside this area. I live in New Jersey. I need to get down south. I need to get out to the west, where the rock and roll strongholds of this country are.
I was actually going to ask how New Jersey affects your musical stylings, or if it has any effect on you.
It doesn't really. Like there's no real scene here right now. I mean, some would say there is. I don't really think that there is, especially for like, guitar driven hard rock like I play and write. I don't really see much going on at all. I have a couple friends that have some really good bands, but as far as a scene, there isn't one.
That's kind of unfortunate, to live. Does that kind of drive you nuts ever?
It does. It does.
I would think that it would.
It does, but I know the parts of the country that are really open to what I'm doing, and I'll get there. And if that's where it breaks open for me on the road, then so be it. Doesn't have to be here. It could be anywhere. And then once you kind of catch fire, that it spreads everywhere regardless.
All right. So, I'm going back to the fishing thing because I obviously see the fish that you have hanging on your back wall there.
Yeah, I got them all over the house.
If there were one type of fish that you could catch that you've never caught yet, what would that be?
Let me see. I would say probably a Cubera snapper, which is like indigenous to like, Central America, Panama, Costa Rica. They're insanely big and insanely powerful, and they got big teeth. And so, yeah, probably one of them, or like a, big marlin would be kind of cool, but I'm not really a swordfish for certain.
Oh.
And a halibut. I'd love to catch a halibut.
Those all sound really fun. Isn't the fish that you just said that resides around like Costa Rica and whatnot, is that also referred to as a vampire fish?
I never heard them referred to as that. It's just like a big red coppery looking snapper with big teeth.
Okay, because I know there are some fish down in South America and whatnot near the Amazon that are referred to as vampire fish that have gargantuan fangs.
Yeah.
And I would love to try and catch something like that. A swordfish would be awesome. I just wouldn't know what type of rig I would use for that.
Yeah, swordfish are around here in the Northeast. You deep drop at night for them with like a squid or whatever. Yeah, I've never caught. My brother has a nice 250 pounder to his credit, and he said it was the most unbelievably agonizing fish to fight that he's in, because he didn't give up the rod. He fought it for about 2 hours.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a monstrous fight right there. And I thought
the ocean has some big beasts in it.
I'd say. I thought that getting a muskie was hard.
That's something I never caught either, and I'd love to catch one of them.
Have you ever thought of fishing in the Great Lakes to try and get a muskie?
I've actually thought a lot about fishing on the Great Lakes. I just never really get to get out there.
That would make sense. Family life can definitely be a hindrance on that sometimes. But I like in your Instagram, you definitely say that you are a father. How has that affected your writing? Having a child, having a family.
I don't know that it's affected my writing. I mean, I do have a song about my daughter on the new record called "For the Taking." It's about raising a young girl and watch her turn from a young kid into a a healthy, strong young woman. But I don't really know if I don't think it really, other than that song, I don't think it really affects my writing too much. My writing goes to like darker topics most of the time.
I think
like my kid's this little beacon of joy for me. and the writing just sort of, I like to walk in like the dark places, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Bring stuff to light that might not be
That
that pleasant.
that definitely makes sense. So you like people like Ace Frehley, Jimmy Page. Is there a band that you would like to see that you haven't seen, like your influences or idols, or anything like that? Is there one band that you have taken a lot of influence from that you have yet to see live?
Probably not. I've seen most of the people I wanted to see, I've seen. I'd love to be able to go back in time and see the original Leonard Skinner, you know, go back to the 70s and see Sabbath. But as far as like somebody that I never got to see, I don't know. I've been really fortunate. I've been going to those shows since I was like 12 years old. My mom is a real rock and roller, and she dragged us kids around to a lot of great shows that we wanted to go to.
All right. So you don't have to answer this, but in 2013, you were struggling, with some personal things,
Yeah,
and how did your music help get you out of that?
it's an interesting story. Yeah, I was kind of starting from scratch again emotionally. You know, I've been through a rough divorce and a really shitty rebound after that. And I was like, I had hit rock bottom. I just needed to be by myself. Um, so I would log onto my computer and just work my day gig, you know, like every day a little better. And I would go on YouTube and just pick out albums to listen to. And one day I just sort of bumped into the Whippoorwill by Blackberry Smoke. And I listened, I was like, who is this band and what is this record? I listened to it one time through and it's like good, like groovy, kind of like southerny kind of rock. And it was like, that's pretty good record. I like this band. Went back the next day, listened to the whole thing again. Year later, I'm still listening to the whole record every day. And it started to dawn on me like, this band is so good and they're writing such great songs. Maybe I should think about starting to write some songs too. And not long after that dawned on me, sure enough, I started getting a couple ideas here and there. And I said, well, maybe I should write some lyrics out and start putting them down. And that's how this whole path started. Exactly from crawling out of a deep dark hole and bumping into that record.
All right. I was just kind of wondering about that because you said that you took some time off from music
Well,
for a while.
I took 20 plus years away from writing and recording. I still play guitar. I still played in, you know, like little cover bands and acoustic duos, wedding bands, stuff like that. But I was not involved in any recording project because I just didn't want to be.
That makes sense. So yeah, this really is a resurgence for you.
It
Then this
totally
is
is.
this is a huge comeback.
This is round two. I mean, round one was from being a little kid up until about, you know, maybe 1993. And round two started again with the writing again in like 2014, culminating in my first solo album, Reckless Abandon, in 2016. So it's all in the grand scheme of things. It's a relatively new resurgence. And it's been like, to say it's been life changing is a complete understatement because it's now really like the main focus of my life is writing and recording.
Okay. Um, if you had advice to give young musicians or struggling musicians, what would that be?
I would say first and foremost, just, you know, believe in what you're doing. Think what you're doing is the greatest because you need that kind of confidence. Write a lot of songs, play out as much as possible, and you know, hopefully enjoy your bandmates because if you don't get along with them, you know, that's a big problem. So get a lineup of guys or girls or combination of both that you really like, really feel like family, and write a lot of songs and play out wherever, play backyard parties, play clubs, play in an alley, doesn't matter. Just play as much as possible and believe in yourself and just keep going.
All right. If do you remember your first show? What was your first like gig that you remember doing, and how did that help motivate you to play out more? Do you remember that or no?
Well, yeah, I could tell you my first gig was like a bat mitzvah in a basement. But the first gig that was like a mind blower that got that roar of the crowd rush kind of thing, that adrenaline, was a battle of the bands at a high school in Clifton, New Jersey. And I guess I was like 14, 13 or 14. And my band at the time did like 8 Kiss songs and like 2 Led Zeppelin songs. And that was our set. And the last song was Stairway to Heaven, of course, and I broke a string. And I got the string wound up, tuned up just in time to run back out and bust into the solo at the end. And it was like, it was just, it was total mayhem. And I was like, wow, man. I said, I don't know what that rush just was, but it was like the coolest thing ever. And that was kind of the ignition point, that there was the point of no turning back after experiencing that roar, you know.
That's awesome.
It was.
That
It was
is
pretty cool. And we didn't win. And we never won a band battle because it was always politically, charged. The judges were friends with this band and shit like that. But we always just absolutely crushed it from the crowd reaction. But we always got the election was always stolen.
that seems to be a really common theme when it comes to battles of the bands, man. I've heard that from lots of different musicians and artists that, they're like, man, we went out there, we did awesome, we thought we killed it. But of course, the whole thing was being sponsored by this band's
Yeah.
friends or whatever.
Of course. Well, the only way to do it fairly is to bring in, some music fans from 3 towns away or whatever that don't know anybody, and let them judge just basically purely on performance and musical merit. But that never happens. It's always political.
I That's another thing I had. Politics and music, man. I know it was a big controversy a few years ago. A musician by the name of Tommy Vexed. Do you know of that guy?
I don't.
He stepped away from a band that is called the Bad Wolves because of his political views. He said that he didn't want to harm the band with his political views. And after that, got into a big stink with the band. But what are your thoughts on?
I think I did hear about that. And you know what? Look, politics and entertainment shouldn't mix, but yet they do. If you go to a show and you don't want to hear the singer get up there and preach his beliefs between songs, no matter really what they are. You know what I mean? I don't want to see that. And I would never do that at one of my shows. I have my own beliefs, but I'm not going to preach them to people that don't want to hear it. But people get very passionate about it. It gets crazy, divides people. So my opinion really is just, keep it out of music. And if you're going to put politically charged statements in your lyrics, do it in a veiled form. So it's not completely blatant. I mean, use metaphors and make people really dig into trying to figure out what you're talking about.
Okay.
Because music is supposed to be entertainment, and so is Hollywood and everything else. Everything else that's politically charged, all these entertainment mediums, politics doesn't belong in them. So,
I can definitely agree with that. I know,
like I definitely have my views, but I ain't gonna preach them to people.
I can respect that. I agree with you that politics shouldn't be involved in music. That yes, we all have our own views, and whatnot on the government and just anything else in life. But it's just like the mixing of school and church and all that good stuff. That
Yeah,
kind of riles people up.
it does. It totally riles people up. Like you kind of get the gist of where I'm coming from. I mean, do what you want to do, and don't try to, shove it down other people's throats, because they have their own beliefs and they might not necessarily align with yours. So why take that path?
Right. Why create division amongst, fans? So I can get that. What would you consider your genre? I've I'm just kind of curious because you can feel the blues influence, you can feel the southern rock influence, you can feel, you know, your classic kind of like a bluegrassy rock influence in there, kind of sound. What would you consider yourself to be if you had to tell people?
Well, I thought about a lot about that, and here's my concise answer. It's guitar driven hard rock with Southern and Americana leanings.
Okay, I like that answer. Yeah,
I
I
think
like
that,
that answer.
because I've thought that's it in a nutshell. That's sort of it. You got the guitar, you got the hard rock, you got Southern influence, you got Americana. Like Modern Day Jesus is very Americana-ish. I don't know if you've heard that tune yet.
Mhm.
That's actually the one that's out currently. So yeah, and like that's the kind of music not only do I like to write that, but also that I like to listen to.
Okay. What was your first guitar?
First guitar was this just this off-brand called a Zimgar, Zimgar. Actually, that was my first electric guitar, my first acoustic. I don't even remember what kind that was. But my first real guitar was a Gibson SG when I was 13 years old. And getting that thing, man, was like holding the holy grail in my hand. I got home and like, it's like I couldn't believe that I actually owned a Gibson. It was exactly $300.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you remember the color of it?
Yeah, it was wine red.
Nice. So the classic Gibson SG.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
do you still have that guitar?
I don't, but I have another SG that's a far better guitar. Um, it's 2000. It's a 2013, and that model they happen to call the SG Original, and it was a really accurate reproduction of the 1961 SG Les Paul, which was that's what the SG was when it first came out. It was the new Les Paul, because they retired that shape until 1968. I think again the traditional Les Paul shape came. So yeah, it's kind of similar um, to the casual observance of my first one, but it's a way better guitar.
Okay. I know that some musicians keep like their first instrument or whatever, but I just always thought that would be really hard to do over the years, you know, especially
It
if you
is,
have.
and most guitar players don't have their first bunch of guitars. I guarantee you. I've owned and sold so many great guitars that I kick myself in the ass over the years. But that's what you do. You want a new one, so you sell an old one, unless you have unlimited cash, which most of us don't. So
No, most of us musicians are definitely on a budget when it comes to buying instruments. You know,
yeah. So
we
when I want a new one, I got to sell an old one. I haven't done that in a long time though. I'm kind of sitting on what I have.
all right. Do you prefer to play acoustic or electric? I know some people have leanings more towards acoustic, due to just like the feel, and some people have more leanings towards electric. What would your preferred be?
I love them both. It really depends. Excuse me. When I'm around the house, I'm always playing an acoustic. Just it's always because I don't. Number one, I don't have to plug it in. Um, it's a lot more responsive. Obviously, it's an acoustic guitar. It's louder, and um, I write everything on acoustic too. So I have a tendency to always go for that first. I'm definitely out of practice as far as like ripping electric chops. It takes me a couple days to get really back into shape and ready to go out and play an electric show when it's time. I don't just step up there with electric and be back in the shape I was. It takes a few days of really shedding because it's a whole
Okay.
different thing. But
All
yeah,
right.
I mean, I love that too. There's nothing beats plugging into a great sound of Marshall and cranking it up. But day in and day out, I'm much more on the acoustic than I am on electric.
Okay. I was actually going to ask what type of amp you use, but you just kind of answered that one.
Yeah, I have an old Marshall JMP from 1976. That's my go-to. And I also have a little orange Tiny Terror. It's a little 15-watt head built into like a 112 cabinet. It's awesome, dude. You pick it up with one hand, you walk out the door, plug it in, and it's a great sounding rig. You don't even need any pedals.
Okay. What is your favorite song? Like, I think I know that's kind of a hard question, because a lot of musicians listen to hundreds, thousands of songs. But if you could pick one, what would your all-time favorite song be?
Probably "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" from Pink Floyd. "Wish You Were Here." There's a part one and a part two.
Okay. Okay. I used to have the Pied Piper at the Gates of Dawn album. It was my
Oh, that's an
father's.
oldie.
So, oh yeah, it's definitely an oldie. It's one of those ones that people are like, how do you even know that one? You're so young. Like,
Yeah,
well, my dad and my family were really cool, and so I grew up on classic rock, and I grew up on like BB King, and older bluesy rock and metal.
that's
Definitely.
awesome, because I had the same advantage with my mom, who was a rocker. And once us kids, my brothers and I, got a taste of it, we got off on our own, and we started figuring out what was good, going to record stores and buying everything from Uriah Heep to Rush to Queen, Thin Lizzy, Black Sabbath, you name it. You
I
name it,
I
we owned it.
Oh man, Thin Lizzy. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. That's
Great,
actually really cool.
great two guitar hard rock band, man.
Do you remember your first show that you went to with your mother?
Yeah. The first real rock show was Johnny Winter and his band at the South Mountain Arena near where I grew up in West Orange, 1975. And that was my first dose of, the lights going down, the weed smoke, like coming out, cranking those guitar sounds, cranking through a loud PA. And I was like, wow, man, this is like the big leagues here. It was
Oh yeah.
insane. It was so good. Yeah, that was it. That was the first one.
It's hard to really match because I've seen older videos of classic shows, and you know the modern day shows don't really compare to that vibe, because
I
now
have
you have
to,
like backing tracks, and you have all of this equipment, all of these electronics that help the sound, and it seems like earlier on in the earlier days of rock and metal and whatnot, you didn't have all that. It was pure
yeah, it was
talent.
it was all organic back then, but I will tell you, it depends on who you're going to see. Because if you go see a band that's just an amazing band and doesn't have any of that glitz and glamour, it's still the same magic. I went to see the Tedeschi Trucks band about a month ago here in Jersey, and it was just a 70s style, just amazing, amazing concert. I don't know if you're familiar with Tedeschi Trucks.
Mm-mm.
All
I'll
right,
have to look them up.
Derek Trucks is Butch Trucks, one of the original drummers from the Allman Brothers band. It's his nephew, and he's an
Okay.
absolute virtuoso guitar player, in particular on slide guitar. And Susan Tedeschi was, before they hooked up and put this band together, just an amazing, amazing blues singer, like one of the best voices, I think out there, female or male. And they got together and they put this band together, and they toured with there's like a dozen people on the stage. There's horns, there's three backup singers, and it's pure organic bluesy rock, and it's just absolutely kick ass. So a show like that, is a throwback to the great shows of the 70s. There's no difference.
Okay.
No backing tracks, no crazy effects or any of that shit, just pure great music.
See, that's what I like. I like organic music, and it's hard to come by that these days, or
Yeah, there's
and
some bands out there. There's some bands out there. Blackberry Smoke, the Steel Woods. You ever hear the Steel Woods?
I have not. Man, I feel out of the loop on music these days.
Check out check
uh
out check out the Steel Woods.
I will definitely have to do that.
Yeah, they're an Alabama band, and they're just out there just playing, like Southern rock, a little bit of country influence, but just great songwriting, great lyrics, and they're just grinding it out. They're on the road all the time.
I will have to do that. I will definitely have to do that. When I think of Southern rock, maybe it's cliche, but I think of like Skinner, like right off the bat. I don't know why, but that's who I
Because they
think of.
because they were the one of the king pioneers of Southern rock. You think of who you think of? You think of Skinner, think of Marshall Tucker Band, the
Yep.
Outlaws, and the Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
Those are pretty much the pioneers.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What would you have considered? What would you have considered Johnny Cash when it comes to music?
I would consider him like outlaw country. He was probably the first, like, and that's like a hip genre now, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, outlaw country because he was just like a badass, and stylistically, it was more country than anything, I guess.
Okay. I that's a question I haven't really asked anyone before, but I thought that you would be a good one to ask that question about because you seem extremely knowledgeable when it comes to music, which is
I don't
always
know. I don't.
refreshing.
I am in a very narrow band, a narrow bandwidth. There's a lot that I don't know about, believe me. But thank you.
Anytime. I enjoy learning, so that's one thing. That's why I love interviewing people. I love interviewing people who have been playing music for a long time, and it's always nice to learn about newer bands and people's views on music and where they came from. And it's refreshing to me because no one's story is ever the same.
Yeah.
And you can tell that you've been through your struggles and your battles through your music, and that's one thing that's hard to come by these days is authentic music, authentic lyrics that actually come from the heart, because a lot of nowadays it's like I just want to get big,
Yeah,
I
well,
just
don't
want to get
forget, I got a
famous.
lifetime of shit that channels into those lyrics. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm
I'm not an
saying.
18-year-old kid by any stretch. I got a lot. I've done a lot of living, and I think that life experience, both ups and downs, is definitely fuel for songwriting.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
very
that's
much
my
so.
that's my scars coming out.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm Yeah, I can see that. Do you hope, well, I think most musicians hope that their music will help people, help, change people and are relatable. And I think that, a lot of things that you talk about in your music are relatable to a whole bunch of people, especially how you were talking earlier about, going through that bad divorce and going through that really rough patch. I think that's that a lot of people can relate to that because it seems like that's a lot more prevalent these days than what people really want to admit, because it seems like a lot of people these days just throw on a facade, so
Yeah.
it seems like you just went in there and you're like, here it is, this is me, and raw and filtered, this is me, and
Well,
I
that's cool. I
respect
mean,
that.
I like that's kind of cool to hear you say that, because that's kind of what it is. I mean, like I tell my stories, as they happen a lot, and a lot of what I write isn't about me. It's also about what I observe in other people. As far as how I want my music to impact people, I just want them really to enjoy it. You know what I mean? I'm not preaching any kind of message, and music is, I think, first and foremost, something that's supposed to lift you up. So if people can hear my stuff and go, wow, I really dig that, I listen to it all the time, I just love it, and if for no other reason then they just love it, then that's, I've done my job. We've done our work here, Captain.
I like that response. I do,
Yeah,
because
and if anybody like gets a message or something that helps them through a rough patch, then even better. But all I can really hope for is that they just enjoy it, and it just makes their day better, because they dig music and they're just digging what I did. So yeah, man.
I liked your outlook on that. That's yeah. I like that outlook because music, everyone takes something differently, from someone's music or anything, or people can put their own meaning to it, and can if can try and relate. And yeah, there are songs that can definitely make them smile, or they can be like, yeah, I feel that, I dig that, I understand that, or be like, I kind of been there. And it music saves lives,
I
and
agree.
true music that comes from the heart, from the soul, that's not generic, I think has a stronger impact on people. And your music, you can feel emotions through your music, through your lyrics, through your guitar, through your riffs. It's genuine. It's not produced by some large company. You don't have a million people, standing behind you telling you this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do. You're just laying it bare.
Dude, I really appreciate that sentiment because you're right on the money with that. It's just coming purely from the heart. And the fact that you're picking up on that is like, it's awesome. It makes me feel great as a songwriter because I'm doing the job, so thank you so much.
Yeah, man, no problem. I mean, I've been very honest with people about my views on their music, and I always will be, because I, as a musician myself, we appreciate the honesty. We don't want no bull crap, and when someone can actually take the time to sit back and genuinely listen, and just close their eyes and just let it wash over them, is awesome. And I'll tell people straight up, if I was caught in the moment of their music, I'm not gonna beat around the bush and be like, yeah. So yeah, no, I thank you for releasing the newest album and for really coming back, because you your music is real in a world of music that is becoming all too fake. I guess. Does that make
Appreciate that.
sense? Do I make
Yeah,
sense with
no,
that?
yeah, of course it does. And there's a lot of artists out there doing it the same way. You just you got to dig for them. You know what I mean? Because they're not necessarily going to be in the mainstream.
No, no. A lot of the stuff you hear these days it's all becoming very generic and all the same. Copy and paste is really what a lot of it is sounding like. So
Yeah,
yes.
I got another album that was really into last year that you're going to want to go check out. It's a young chick. Her name is Morgan Wade. She's out of Virginia. Her album is like, she would be painted as a country artist, but her album is really like, it's really more of a rock album, rock with a slight like a slight pop twist to it, but she's got a very obvious southern twang to her voice when she sings, so it's going to be labeled country, but this chick is coming from the heart, man. She's the real deal. So
I will
check her
have
record out too.
Oh,
Morgan
I will
Wade.
definitely do that. Morgan Wade. I will
Yeah,
write that
she's
down.
blowing up pretty big right now. She's doing really well. But and it's like this chick at 26 years old is already 3 years sober, covered with tattoos from head to friggin' toe, and it's just, tells it like it is. You'll dig her.
All right. Here's an artist that I've been listening to recently. I don't know if you've heard of him. He goes by the name of Jelly Roll.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay, that's one of the artists out there that I can honestly say is very true to themselves. That's kind of breaking the mold of your generic modern day music. So, what are your thoughts on his music, if I may ask?
I've heard a couple tunes here and there. I really haven't heard enough to comment, but I do remember that hearing the name and really digging it. Now that you brought it up, I'll definitely dig back in because I need some new stuff to dive into right now.
All right. Well, I'm glad I could bring that name back up
Yeah,
too.
man. Absolutely.
All right. I feel I've taken up about 45 minutes of your time here.
Whatever you need.
Um, hey man, my boss doesn't like me to go over 45 minutes.
All right.
So
All right, we're done.
I
See you
want
later. Click.
to shit, don't do that. I want to thank you for taking your time out of your day to kind of speak with me about music and dealing with some young punk.
Totally my
uh
pleasure, Jacob. Totally my pleasure, man.
You're listening to Rock at Night. The introductory song, Get On Down, is from blues artist Billy Bass Alford. Look for his music at ReverbNation.com.